Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every person on Earth speaks the same language. Not English, not Mandarin, not Spanish, but a completely new universal tongue that everyone mysteriously understands. Sounds like science fiction? Well, buckle up, because we're about to explore what this linguistic utopia might actually look like. Welcome to a thought experiment that will challenge everything you think you know about communication, culture, and human civilization itself. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into the fascinating world of linguistic unity. Let's start with the big question. How would this even happen? Scientists have proposed several wild theories. Picture this. A breakthrough in neurolinguistics creates a universal language chip that gets implanted at birth. Or maybe it's evolution on fast forward. Climate change forces global cooperation, and our brains adapt by developing a shared linguistic framework within just a few generations. The most intriguing theory? Artificial intelligence develops a perfect translation protocol that becomes so embedded in our daily lives, it literally rewires how we think and speak. Within decades, this AI-mediated language becomes humanity's natural tongue. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about words changing. We're talking about a complete transformation of human consciousness. Now imagine the cultural shockwave. Over 7,000 languages currently exist on Earth, each carrying thousands of years of history, jokes, poems, and ways of seeing the world. When the Lakota people say "Mita kuye oyasing," they're not just saying "all my relations." They're expressing a worldview where humans, animals, plants, and spirits are all interconnected family. How do you translate that into a universal language without losing the soul of the concept? Here's the fascinating part. Languages don't just describe reality, they actually shape how we think. Russians can distinguish between light blue and dark blue faster than English speakers because they have separate words for each. The Piraha people of the Amazon have no words for exact numbers beyond 2. And studies show they genuinely think about quantity differently than we do. So when everyone speaks the same language, we're not just losing words. We're potentially losing entire ways of understanding reality itself. But let's flip the script for a moment. Imagine the incredible benefits of this linguistic unification. Scientific collaboration explodes overnight. A researcher in Bangladesh can seamlessly share discoveries with colleagues in Brazil and Belgium without any translation delays or misunderstandings. Medical breakthroughs happen faster. Climate solutions spread instantly. Mathematical proofs can be verified globally in real time. Education becomes democratized like never before. The best teachers, the most brilliant lecturers, the most comprehensive courses, all accessible to anyone, anywhere without language barriers. A child in rural Mongolia has the same access to knowledge as a student at Harvard. And think about the internet. No more Google Translate fails. No more lost in translation memes. Every video, every article, every social media post becomes universally accessible. The collective human knowledge becomes truly collective. The economic implications are mind-bending. The translation industry, and worth over $50 billion annually, vanishes overnight. But here's the twist. It's replaced by something far more valuable. Global commerce becomes frictionless. A small business owner in Ghana can directly negotiate with suppliers in Vietnam and customers in Canada without intermediaries. International contracts become crystal clear. Legal disputes over translation errors become extinct. But wait, there's a dark side. Millions of translators, interpreters, and language teachers suddenly find themselves obsolete. Entire industries built around linguistic diversity collapse. The economic disruption would make the Industrial Revolution look like a minor adjustment. Here's where things get psychologically intense. Language isn't just how we communicate, it's who we are. When Welsh speakers fight to preserve their language, they're not just protecting words. They're preserving a unique way of experiencing the world that connects them to centuries of ancestors. In this universal language scenario, would the Welsh still be Welsh? Would any cultural identity survive intact? Research shows that bilingual people actually have different personalities when speaking different languages. Spanish speakers report feeling more emotional and expressive, while English speakers feel more analytical and reserved. If everyone spoke the same language, would human personality itself become more uniform? This raises a terrifying question. Are we talking about linguistic unity or cultural extinction? Now let's get political, because language always is. Whose grammar rules would this universal language follow? Whose pronunciation would be correct? Would we use Chinese-style tonal variations, Arabic-style right-to-left writing, or German-style compound words? Every choice would be a political statement. Power dynamics would shift dramatically. Currently, English dominance in science and business gives native English speakers massive advantages. In a truly universal language, those advantages evaporate. But new power structures would emerge around who controls the language's evolution. Imagine the geopolitical tensions. Nations that built their identity around linguistic uniqueness might view universal language as cultural imperialism. We could see language wars like we've never imagined. Here's a mind-bender. What happens to human creativity? Poetry depends heavily on wordplay, rhythm, and cultural references that don't translate. Shakespeare's To Be or Not to Be works in English partly because of its sound and rhythm. Would universal language poetry be more accessible but less artistically rich? Music would transform completely. Rap battles in Tokyo would sound exactly like rap battles in Detroit. Folk songs would lose their regional flavor, but maybe we discover entirely new forms of artistic expression that only become possible through universal understanding. Comedy faces the biggest challenge. Humor is deeply cultural and linguistic. Would we lose our ability to find things funny? Or would comedy become more sophisticated when everyone gets the same references? Let's dive into the science. Linguists have actually tried to create universal languages before. Esperanto, invented in 1887, has about 2 million speakers worldwide. But it never achieved global dominance because languages aren't just tools, they're living ecosystems. Brain scans reveal that different languages activate different neural networks. Mandarin speakers use both hemispheres for processing tone, while English speakers primarily use the left hemisphere. A universal language would literally rewire billions of brains. But here's the fascinating part. Children's brains are incredibly adaptable. If universal language implementation started with newborns, within just one generation, we'd have humans whose brains are optimized for this new linguistic reality. They might think faster, process information more efficiently, and connect ideas in ways we can't imagine. Technology would evolve at breakneck speed. Currently, software developers must localize applications for dozens of languages and cultural contexts. Universal language eliminates this complexity entirely. Artificial intelligence becomes exponentially more powerful. Instead of training separate language models for English, Chinese, Arabic, and hundreds of other languages, AI systems could focus all their computational power on understanding one incredibly sophisticated universal language. We'd likely achieve artificial general intelligence decades sooner. But here's the scary part. This universal language would probably be designed and controlled by tech companies. Imagine if Google or Apple had the power to update human language like they update software. New vocabulary could be pushed to everyone overnight. Controversial concepts could be systematically removed from the language itself. Not everyone would embrace this change. We'd likely see underground resistance movements dedicated to preserving original languages. Picture secret schools hidden in basements where grandparents whisper ancient words to children. Black market books written in forbidden tongues. Digital networks encrypting communications in dead languages to avoid universal surveillance systems. These linguistic rebels would argue that diversity of thought requires diversity of language. They'd claim that universal language is a form of mental colonization, making humanity more efficient but less human. And they might be right. History shows us that languages fight back. Hebrew was essentially dead for centuries before being revived as modern Israel's national language. Welsh, Maori, and dozens of other languages have been pulled back from the brink of extinction by passionate communities. Here's where our thought experiment gets really wild. Universal language might trigger completely unexpected changes in human behavior and society. Regional accents would probably disappear within a few generations. Without linguistic diversity, human vocal patterns might become more uniform. We might literally start sounding more alike. Dating and relationships would transform. Currently, people often find certain accents attractive or seek partners who speak their native language. Universal language could make personality and ideas more important than linguistic compatibility. Or it could make human connection feel more shallow and homogenized. Even our dreams might change. People dream in their native languages, and dream content varies significantly across cultures. Universal language could create more similar dream experiences across all of humanity. Let's imagine the first generation of children born into this universal language world. These kids would be linguistic natives in a way no humans have ever been before. They'd probably develop cognitive abilities we can't currently imagine. Without the mental energy required to navigate multiple language systems, their brains could optimize for other types of processing. They might be naturally better at mathematics, pattern recognition, or abstract thinking. But they'd also lose something fundamental. They'd never experience the joy of discovering that other languages have words for concepts they couldn't previously express. They'd never feel the intimate connection that comes from sharing a mother tongue with someone special. These universal language natives might view older generations with the same puzzlement that digital natives view people who remember life before the internet. You mean people used to not understand each other just because of words? Here's the most chilling aspect of this scenario. Once universal language takes hold, there's probably no going back. Languages die when there's no economic or social incentive to learn them. If everyone speaks the universal language, why would anyone bother learning obsolete tongues? Within just 2 or 3 generations, most original languages would exist only in academic archives and historical recordings. The tipping point would come faster than anyone expects. Once roughly 70% of global commerce, education, and entertainment operates in the universal language, the remaining languages become essentially decorative. Parents stop teaching them to children because they seem irrelevant for future success. And unlike other forms of cultural loss, linguistic extinction is almost impossible to reverse. You can rebuild architecture, revive art forms, and restore customs. But once a language dies, it takes the unique worldview it carried with it into oblivion. So, after exploring every angle, what's the verdict? Would universal language create a utopia of perfect communication or a dystopia of cultural extinction? The truth is, it would probably be both. Humanity would gain unprecedented ability to share knowledge, coordinate global efforts, and understand each other across traditional boundaries. We'd solve problems faster, create more efficiently, and eliminate countless sources of conflict and misunderstanding. But we'd pay a price that might be too high to calculate. We'd lose the beautiful chaos of human diversity. We'd sacrifice thousands of unique ways of understanding reality for one supposedly superior method of communication. Perhaps the most honest answer is this: universal language would make us more effective as a species, but potentially less interesting as individuals. We'd become a more powerful civilization at the cost of becoming a more homogeneous one. This thought experiment forces us to confront a fundamental question about human nature. Do we value efficiency or diversity, unity or uniqueness, perfect communication or beautiful confusion? The answer reveals something profound about who we are and who we want to become. Are we primarily a problem-solving species that should optimize for maximum cooperation? Or are we fundamentally artists and storytellers who need linguistic diversity to fully express the human experience? Maybe the real question isn't whether universal language would be good or bad. Maybe it's whether humanity is ready to make such a dramatic choice about its own future, and whether we're wise enough to understand what we'd be gaining and what we'd be losing forever. The next time someone complains about language barriers or translation errors, remember this thought experiment. Those frustrations might actually be the price we pay for living in the most linguistically diverse period in human history. And that diversity might be more precious than perfect communication could ever be. What do you think? Would you choose the universal language? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-bending thought experiments that challenge how you see the world.